So yes, welcome. I am Onika Narain. For those of you who are new, if you are new, just type in the comments and let us know. You could just type and say, I'm new. Hi, my name is Lisa or Michelle or whatever. I am new. It's always good to see, who is new on the call. As Celeste said, I'm going to give you all an opportunity to share, perhaps to ask a question. And this is a space that you are free to not necessarily say a business, because you want to keep some things private. But what you'd find in common in this group is that a lot of women are going through the same thing that you are. And so when you ask questions about your issues, you'd find that, women would type in the chat and be like, oh my gosh, I'm going through that exact thing. Or sometimes while I'm speaking, I see people typing and it's like, oh my gosh, you're talking about me. That's my relationship. And that's because a lot of the issues that you are going through, ladies, trust me, you are not alone. And your issue is not unique to you. I have heard some really far out issues in counseling people that could be a little unique, but generally the things that you are going through, it's not uncommon. And there's help out there. There are other women who have been through what you've been through and who are willing, available, ready, has the wisdom and able to help you, right? So this session is especially, well, the name of the session, the real name of the session, I guess in my mind, is Love is Not All You Need, right? Love is not all you need to make your marriage work. Right now, let me ask you all a question. I have a friend who used to tell me that long time. The person used to say, I don't know, people, no, not married, right? The person not married. And they would say, I don't know, people is have all this trouble in marriage. Love is all you need. And once you have love, listen, and I used to be like, listen, I hear you, I hear what you're saying. But when you're in this situation, it's different. That love that you are talking about, that is all you need, you're wrong. Understand that person did not understand. It would be like I talk in Greek anytime I say that love is not all you need. And they actually thought they had all the answers. And that, once I have this burning love for the person, my marriage will work. I don't have to work. All them things, the thinking was, all them little things that's come up, we will iron that out. The love we have will be so strong that yes, we're gonna have issues, but the love going to override that the love will fix that. And any married ladies on the call? Let me see if you're married. Just type in the chat for me. If you're married, just type it in the chat. I'm married. Just let me know if you're married and you are in the chat. I don't want to I know people are still joining, so I don't want to get too deep yet. Married. We have Adele. We have Chriselle, Naomi, Aviance. We have people married. So we have plenty married people. Nice. I like that, right? So I want to ask the married people who are on the call, based on, I haven't gotten into it yet to explain myself properly, but just based on the title of the show, Love is Not All You Need to Make Your Marriage Work. The love that I'm talking about, that romantic kind of love. How many of you, if you would be honest, you did have that thought before you were married, but now that you are married, you realize that was not the truth. That wasn't so. That it's you had a false thinking then. So before marriage, you thought this love and the passion that I felt, that will keep me. That's once I have that, I good. But now that you're married, you have another thought. Let me see. Anybody like that on the call? That would be interested to see. I did. Naomi said, yep, harsh reality. Me, whoa. Okay, come on, I want to see more. And I'm doing this for the single ladies on the call. I'm asking you all, me, right? I'm doing this, so answer. If you had that thought before, but you realize after that's not the case, right? People just keep coming up and saying, yes, absolutely, yes, me. So now if there's single ladies on the call, right, you all are privileged. I don't know if you see it like that, you're privileged. Because a lot of people, when they're single, actually they're not privy to this kind of information that I'm going to give tonight. And nobody actually tells them the harsh reality of marriage. And you might hear me using that term, harsh reality of marriage, and say, what is woman saying? She's making marriage sound like it's this horrible thing. No way, I'm not saying that. But it certainly most times is not what, as a single person going into marriage, it's certainly those thoughts that you have when you get into marriage, you realize that I had it wrong, that I had it wrong. And so it's good to have someone sit you down, somebody who is married, somebody who is not only married, but has a successful marriage. Sometimes I think it's overrated, Abby. No. It could be a beautiful thing, but it's I could understand that statement if your marriage wasn't going well. Fairy tale picture of marriage. Yeah, I know. Right? So it's good to sit down and talk with somebody who has been married for a while, and who has had a successful marriage. And a successful marriage, those of you who grew up with parents who stayed together for 30, 40 years, but you knew that there was no love in the marriage, or you knew that your parents were miserable, hating each other, staying together in the same house and saying, okay, I'm married 30 years is not success. You don't get a box tick and say that's a successful marriage. That's not a successful marriage. And so I am talking about getting counsel. I mean, I guess somebody like that could also counsel you, but getting counsel from someone who has been through it, who has have the experience, the wisdom, the knowledge, who have tried things, seen that this is not working, changed their methods of doing things, try, and somebody could give you that type of valuable advice, single ladies, right? Don't go into your marriage naive, thinking that you know it all and that what you have right now as a courting couple or engaged or dating is going to take you through your marriage, right? That's just not the truth. So let me ask, right? How many single ladies we have on the call? How many of you are single? If there's anybody engaged or close to being engaged, close to being married, or somebody, been dating for a while, I want to see how many single ladies on the call. Right, Ayana, singles. If you're dating, say single, dating, single like $1. Oh no. Somebody get Crystal Martin $100 now. Single, so we have some single people. We say single. Anybody dating in a serious relationship, engaged, or just on the verge of becoming engaged, anybody like that, or at least in a serious relationship. This will benefit you and the single people if there's anybody like that. So let me see. Single and happy, no dates, myself and I. Dating, heading serious, okay. Married, divorce, in a relationship. Dating, right, okay. Serious relationship, right, okay. So we have a fairly good mix, and that is a good thing. I disengage myself. You disengage yourself, Abby? Is that what she said? She disengaged herself? I'd be interested to hear that. Are you saying, Abby, that you were engaged and you called it off? You called off your engagement? Wow. Abby, you care to share with us why you called off your engagement? I'm curious. I'm gonna get into it, yeah, but I'm just really curious to hear. Because that's actually a rare thing, yeah? That's actually a rare thing for people to call off an engagement. Because you don't make a scene now. You don't make a scene, you don't take the pictures, or it's this hand, you don't take the pictures and thing, and you're like, and now you have to go and tell everybody you're not happening. Abby, you willing? If you're not willing, I cool girls. No, it's no problem. I just think it'll be interesting to hear. But if you're not up to it, that's fine. Oh, okay. Very abusive emotionally and verbally. Okay, so, right. So listen, you did a good thing, right? I know somebody who called off their engagement 2 weeks before the marriage, and wedding invitations went out already. Wedding invitations went out. Everybody knew the person called off the engagement because they found out through a friend that their fiance was cheating on them or had like a side chick for a while. And she confronted him, and he tried to lie for a while. And then eventually he came forward. He said, no, but I don't love her. I love you. And I will never do that when we get married. But she was a smart woman. And she knew that if he could do that while they're dating, that he could do it while they're married. And she called off the engagement. And that this an invitation going out, place paid on for one thing, place paid on for, done hire caterer, a lot of things she had already paid like down payments for, because you have to reserve, you know. And she was like, no. And that was the best decision she made, because what her life would have been, living with a man who cheated on you, and they end up getting divorced, which is even worse than if you know, call off an engagement, right? Okay, so let me get into it now. Let me just warn you all. There's so many things I'm going to say, ladies, you know, if I were to be honest, could perhaps ruffle your feathers. I'm not too sure, you know, what your thinking is, you know, where this would go or what it really takes for a marriage to work. I don't know if you're thinking I'm gonna, you know, give you like 5 points and you do this and that and it will work. What I can tell you is that a lot of it's gonna be on you, and I know people don't like that. But then who else it could be on though? Because you can't control your husband, you can't control your fiance, you can't control another person. The only person you are in control of, ladies, is you. Remember that. You are in control of you. Your choices, you make your choices. You, and the consequences of your choices, everything, it's all on you. So the choices that you make, you can't blame anybody for. The decisions that you make all by yourself, you can't blame anybody for that. And even in your marriage, now marriage is a little different because it is two people, and it take, you know, they say it take two hands to clap, right? But you, those of you who are married, I'm sure you have come to the conclusion that I cannot control, even though you try with all your might to control your husband, you can't do it. You can't, right? Some of you have been successful, but what kind of marriage is that where I just controlling you? I know I couldn't live like that, right? But you can take control over you and your decisions on what you do. So let's go. Love is not all you need, right? In English, right? In English, there's one word for love, and that's love, L-O-V-E, the word love, right? But in the Greek, right? Because I'm taking my definition of love from the Bible, right? Where love originated from God. That is where love originated from. The standard for love comes from God. And so that's my basis, right? In English, there's one word, love. In the Greek, there are 4 words, right? Nobody in this part of the world, English speak, goes around telling people that I philia you, or I agape you, or I eros you, right? So the 4 different types of love is eros, philia, storge, and agape, right? Eros, philia, storge, and agape. Those are the 4 different words for love, and each of those words have a different meaning. It's love, yes, but different types of love, right? And so I'll just quickly go through what the different, this is important. This is important because I think that statement that I made, where love is not all you need for marriage, it kind of needs to be cleared up, because the love that most people think will make their marriage work is eros, and that is not true, right? That is definitely not true. So eros, which is for those of you who might know, what kind of love is eros? Just the word kind of gives it away. The word is eros. What y'all think eros love is? If anybody, if we have any scholars, you actually don't have to be a scholar, because of the word eros. Any suggestions as to what kind of love that is? Type it in the comments. What kind of love is eros? Erotic, right? Romantic, sorry, erotic. I wasn't laughing. Erotic, sexual, right? Sexual, passionate, lustful. Well, not so much love. Oh gosh, erroneous, yes. Right. Abby said painless. Listen. Okay. Right, ladies? You're on track. You're on track. Eros is erotic, passionate love. That's what it means, right? Erotic, passionate kind of love. Romance, it's the kind of love that Eros is only shared between a husband and wife, or a boyfriend and girlfriend, or two people who have that kind of relationship, right? Not only husband and wife, right? That kind of romantic love. And that love involves Eros, guys, involves a lot of feeling. Eros is all about very much fleshly. Eros is in the flesh and the soulless realm as well, because you can have a emotional connection. But honestly, it's more about your flesh, your sexuality. So Eros is supposed to be only between a male and a female, but we know that times have changed, right? But as God designed it, that's how it's supposed to be, a man and a woman. And this is the kind of love that most people fall into, and they get into a relationship, right? There's some kind of attraction or some kind of spark, some kind of chemistry, and they eros each other, right? And there's passion, and you all know how it's go, right? And then there's philia, and the filial love is let me hear all you, because all you like scholars. Philia. What kind of love is that? The word does not give it away, okay? It's spelled sorry, Philia, right? Pauline says brotherly, correct. Brotherly, what else? Not exactly family, no. There's actually another word in the Greek for family love. Philia is more brotherly love. Friends equals the love you'd have for your best friend, the love you'd have for your neighbor. You know, the Bible says that we are to love one another, right? Yes, Gail. Love one another as we love ourselves. Love your neighbor as yourself, right? So philia is that kind of love. That's the love for your fellow man and for your friends and your equals and that kind of thing, right? That love we ought to have for everyone, actually. And then there's storge, and this is the one that deals with, this is STORGE. This is the love that deals with the love of parents and children, that kind of love. Close family. And that's a deep kind of love. I mean, if you have children here, if anybody on this call has children, right? You will know that I always dislike when people ask you this dumb question, who you love more between your husband and your child? You know, why are you asking me? Why are you really asking me? Why are you asking me that for? Right? Those of you who have children, anybody has children on the call? You have a child or children, anybody? Right. See one person have a child. Who else? Anybody with children? Just say, yes, I have a child. You type it in the chat. How many mothers we have on this call? Yep. 2. Michelle has 2. A son. Tasha has a son. Katian, yes. 2 children. Lovely, right? Yeah, so we have some mothers, right? You all know that love, ladies, I don't have to tell you that is a kind of love that is special. It's different. Yeah, those of you who have children, that love is the kind of love that you say, if anybody touch me, Sharon, you could touch me, you could touch me, you could touch me, you could touch my money, you could interfere, but you see my Sharon, I will kill you. And you know that kind of love? I will kill you for my children. I've heard many mothers say that. Don't touch my children, right? And so that love is more protective. That love is very protective. The love that you have for your parents as well is a different kind of love, right? And that love is, there's a bond, a connection between you and your mother, for some, you and your father and your children, right? And that love is called storge, STORGE. And the last kind is agape, right? How many of you know what agape is? What is agape love? Incomprehensible type of love, right? Stacy, agape. Oh, people hands up to actually ask questions. Yeah, the questions, perhaps when I finish, go through this part, talking about the types of love. If you do have a question that I can answer quickly, I will let you, right? Unconditional, God's love, God's love, God's love. right? Yeah, so you all get right, God's love, right? Agape is the love that God has for us, and it is unconditional love. And I'll be honest, because when you become a child of God and you have the Holy Spirit of God living in you, you have the capability of expressing agape love to anyone because you have God in you, right? He has given us the grace and the ability to love like him. But it is a very rare thing because loving like God loves requires selflessness. It requires sacrifice. It requires the person to be the least selfish person in the world because agape love does not depend at all. Agape does not depend at all on the other person. So the other person could not love you or show love to you, but agape will still require you to love them, right? And so that's the 4 types of love. And marriage, guys, is actually the only institute that embodies all 4. You have to have all 4. Right? Not have to have. It's just kind of natural, right? Marriage is the only one that you'd find eros. Well, I hope that you would be friends with your spouse, your husband. I hope that you all could have a friendship, and so there's that friendship kind of love. You'd also have the storge kind of love, like protective against each other. Your husbands are supposed to be protective over you, and you of them as well. And agape, all 4. It's supposed to be in a marriage, right? And the problem with us when we get into marriage is that we concentrate on eros, and that alone cannot keep your marriage together, right? And that's where we're going to take it from. Cindy Smith, is it that you want to ask a question?
No, not at this time.
Okay.
I just pressed it by mistake. Sorry.
Okay, no problem. Was there someone else that wanted to ask a question? I seen another hand. No? Okay. All right. No problem, right? So, guys, so based on what I just said, the 4 types of love and explaining what they are, and what a marriage entails when it comes to this love, we're going to take it from there. So the mistake that most engaged and dating couples make in their thinking is that eros would do it, right? Chanel, is it Chanel? Chanel, you want to ask a question? If I could answer it quickly, I will. Go ahead.
Ma'am, I wanted to know how they pronounce the S-T-O-R-G-E. If it's storge or storge.
Storge, like George. Storge.
Okay.
Storge, yeah, like George. Yeah, right? So, what I was going to say, right? So we're going on now with the understanding that eros cannot sustain your marriage, right? Eros, because how many of you have figured out if you are married already that you don't always feel that kind of romantic love towards your husband? If you agree with me, you could say yes in the comments. There are times where you do not feel that romantic love. In fact, you don't want him to touch you. If he tries to come and touch you at certain times, you would say, "Don't touch me," because you all had you don't always feel that. And so my marriage cannot ride off of that romance. It cannot, because that romance is only dealing with my feelings, and that changes daily. Your feelings is changed like the weather. Your feelings change like the weather, ladies, right? So don't depend on that at all, right? So right, I want to give a story about two gentlemen, actually 2 preachers, right? I rather not name them for reasons, right? They both are from totally different culture to Western culture, right? Totally, yeah. When they're upset here, you don't want them around you. And one of them got married to someone from the Western world, an American. They were not American. Let's say they were Jewish, right? And his parents were very much against the marriage, his parents and her marriage. And the reason is they thought that their cultural differences was just too much for it to work, right? So even though he really loved her and he wanted to marry her, they were kind of in a disarray because their parents were not in agreement and they both value their parents' opinion. And so it was tough moving forward to get married, right? He, however, had a brother who was, I think, a year or two younger than him, who was living in America, working in a big company, very Americanized, living his life. And when he was 25, he called his father and told him he thinks he's ready to get married now. And his father was like, okay, thanks for telling me this. And he was like, no, well, I am sticking to our tradition, which is you, as my parents, you have to find my spouse for me, right? And so the father was like, okay, I didn't think you would still want to go this way, because your brother didn't go that way. But he said, well, sure, well, tell me, give me an idea of what you're looking for. And your mother and I would start looking, right? Let me ask Ollie a question. How many of you all trust your parents to that degree, or your culture, your beliefs, or whatever, to let them choose your spouse for you? That they're going out and choosing your spouse, right? Nope. Not me. Right? Nope. I understand. I totally understand you all saying, no way, right? No way, right? My dad kind of technically did not pick my husband for me, but he's the one who kind of pushed the idea and the thought and kind of introduced us. And he always had that in mind. I think he kind of, in his mind, he was like, okay, this guy will be good for my daughter, and I'm going to try to set them up. But he didn't do it in an arranged way. He just kind of pushed me towards that way and was putting thoughts in my head, right? Anyway, so the westernized one went and talked to his father, and the parents went and they started looking. They found somebody, they sent him pictures, they sent whatever information he wanted about the person. He eventually talked to the person on the phone because the person lived in another country, right? And without ever meeting the girl, right? Listen to this guy. Without ever meeting the girl, they set a wedding date, sent out invitations, planned the entire wedding, thousands and thousands of miles apart. And the first time he saw his bride-to-be was when she walked down the aisle on the wedding day. That was the first time, right? His brother now, who picked his wife himself and forget that tradition, he was like 2 days before the wedding, he said, listen, he said, I just want to know, I just trying to, he was like, to him, he was talking sense to his brother, right? And he was like, suppose when she rounds the corner, she's not what you thought, or the pictures deceive you, or suppose you're like, oh my gosh, I hope that is her sister, I hope that is not her. Suppose you're not attracted to this woman, what are you going to do, right? And he said to him, listen, he's like, love is just as much as you think love has to do with emotions and feeling and stuff, it has to do with your will as well. And you could will yourself to love somebody. You could make a choice. So basically he was saying love for him and what he saw growing up in his tradition was a choice, because his parents' marriage was arranged, right? And they stayed together, lived together, or they had a good marriage, right? And he married the person, and they're still married today. That was some 25 years ago, 30 years ago, right? They're still married. Both of them got married to the same woman. I mean, both of their marriages are going good. But what shocked his older brother was the statement he made, which was, love is as much, and this is a good thing for you to keep in mind, right? Love is as much a question of the will as it is of the emotions. And if you will to love someone or choose to love somebody, you can do it, right? And so, the marriage works, right? Now, with that in mind, ladies, right? That story, and then I know somebody personally whose marriage was arranged in this century, just a few years ago. whose marriage was basically arranged. And they only met each other, like, I think they met each other maybe a couple months or so before their marriage, right? But the marriage was basically an arranged marriage. And it's, I mean, well, it seems to be working, right? It hasn't been long, but it's working, and they get along, and right, things are working out okay. And we know that's a regular for people. What that tells me, now I'm not saying all arranged marriage is going to work, right? That's not true. But it has worked for centuries. And actually in the Bible, that's how it was. That parents are the ones who choose the spouse for their children, right? And it worked. I mean, if you think about it, God is the one who chose Eve for Adam. God made Eve to look a certain way. He's the one that gave Eve basically her, I guess, her personality and who she was. And he presented Eve to Adam. Adam didn't really have a choice, but she was the only woman, but he didn't have a choice, right? And so I said that to say, guys, that there are times in your marriage where you will not feel love, that eros. You will not feel eros, and you would actually have to make a decision. You have to make a choice to love. So you have to make a choice in the times when you actually feeling to run. There are times in a marriage where you feel to pack your bag and go, even if it's just for 2 days. But in times like that, you have to make a choice. You have to take your will and choose to still love this person in spite of what is going on, right? Now, I mean, if any of you, those of you who have been on the previous sessions, you know I'm not talking about true everything, because I know that there are abusive men, physically, emotionally. We had a whole session on narcissists, and we know that there are some people that are selfish. There are some people who actually don't know how to love. I believe that there are many human beings who actually don't know how to love. Even if they try, they're so self-consumed, so selfish, that it's all about them. And somebody who's like that, is very difficult for them to give love. They know how to receive love, and they know what they want. And they'll tell you they know what they deserve too. They'll say, well, I know I this and that and I deserve. They know that. But when it comes to giving sacrificially of themselves, that part, right? So there are some people who, I could talk about this from now until Timbuktu. It's almost like they're incapable because of their selfishness. And people like that need help, like a narcissist. That person would need help because everything is about them, right? But I am talking about two individuals with the capability of love and who want their marriage to work. So I'm not talking about somebody who taking your, ladies, please. I'm not talking about somebody who taking your head and bashing it on a wall, and I'm telling you, you have to choose to love. No, you have to choose to pack your bags and go and make sure you're safe and you don't get hurt anymore. That's what you have to choose to do. I'm not talking about a man who has a different outside woman. Every Monday morning you're hearing about some woman he was with. No. You could continue to agape that man. You could continue to storage that man. You could continue to filia that man, but you don't have to love him in the romantic kind of way and stay with him as a husband. Even God says that you could end the relationship if your husband is continually being unfaithful to you. Even if you do it once, the Bible says it's okay, right? It's okay, right? You could also choose, just how you could choose to love, you could choose not to love, right? And there's a time where you can say, I can't love this person in this romantic way anymore, right? So I'm saying that so that you all will know when I make statements like, there are times in your marriage where you have to make a choice, no matter what the person is doing or saying. I'm not talking about things that are going to bring harm to you or somebody who's displaying the things that I listed, right? I'm talking about when the person just being very, very insensitive, inconsiderate. They just call you a set of names. They walk out of the house, or the person don't do nothing home. They don't do nothing. They're always coming home late, or they're just basically insensitive to your needs and you're not feeling loved, right? I heard many women tell me over the years, I want out of this marriage. I no longer feel loved. That's because you went into the marriage with that love that only has to do with your feeling. And you thought that that would have been enough. And that is just not true, right? So everything in context, ladies, when I say you have to choose to love in spite of, I'm not talking about in spite of the things I spoke about before, right? So I want to read this statement again, and you can write it down and think about it, right? Love is as much a question of the will as it is, love is as much a question of the will as it is of the emotions. And if you choose to love someone, you can, right? You can. My husband always says this. I don't know if I totally agree. I know it's true, but I don't know if I could do it. He was like, you could basically, if you have agape in you, you really have that love in you, you could basically just choose somebody. Once a person is they have the basic qualities of a man, right? I'm not talking about just anybody. Basic qualities of a good man. You could just choose somebody and say, okay, I love you, if you're willing to agape them. Because agape has more to do, well, it's more to do with you loving them than them loving you. And how love works, ladies, or is supposed to work, is that when I give love to you, you're supposed to want to reciprocate that love. You're actually, so it's supposed to be a natural thing. Nobody have to say, love me back now. You don't have to say that. It's supposed to be like a natural thing that this person starts to fall in love with you. So even if, which is why arranged marriages can work, right? Because you can fall in love with someone. You don't have to start off the marriage with eros, but it can happen after, right? The other kinds of love is actually enough to keep you for a while until the eros kick in, right? I'm not an advocate for arranged marriages, although I have said to the young ladies in my church, let me find somebody for you. Let me just pick somebody and just go with it. But I think they're frightened, right? And understandably so, right? So ladies, first thing that I'm going to say that is outside of, let's say, eros, right, is commitment, right? If you are not somebody who is able to commit, you don't have that sense of commitment, you're not somebody who has integrity in that area. And that could show up in your life in many different ways. If you are somebody who, let's say you're given a task or you have a job, let's say you're working a job, whatever, and you are not able to commit to anything that, let's say, your boss asks you to do, or you're not able to commit to even, okay, if you can't even commit to a simple thing, ladies, like reaching somewhere on time, right? Now, I'm not saying there's a one-off time where people are late, right? But if you have no regard for time and you are always late and it's not something that bothers you, you basically move on your time. You're just not able to commit, you just don't have that. Or you are somebody who you've had many different jobs. You keep changing your jobs. And the reason why you are changing your jobs is because there's always some problem. And even though you make a commitment, some of you all sign contracts and you break it because you're not able to commit or you don't want to commit because halfway through the contract, you don't like something and you say, well, I just done. I go and leave this work and I don't care because them ruffling my feathers and I don't get along with nobody here. So I done and I there, right? And there's always some excuse to break your commitments, right? So that the lack of commitment can show up in your character before you get married. And if you are somebody who you have the tendency to be like the things that I just listed, I mean, it could show up in other ways as well. Simple task that somebody might give you and you just can't stick to it. You're always dropping it. And what is important too is to think about why you're not able to commit. Why you're not able to see it as being integrity or, part of having a good character to commit to something, especially if you verbally committed, right? So sometimes when we sign a contract, we say, okay, I signed, so I will stick it out. Even though I want to do this thing again, I have a written contract and I sign it, right? But if we make verbal commitments to people, if you make verbal commitments to people, you want to be seen as a trustworthy person who can keep their word. And if you say you're committed to something, see it through. And you don't just give up. People who don't stick to commitments are generally selfish. Because what I mean, the reason why they stop in the middle of the task or whatever, the job or whatever it is because it no longer suits them. They no longer get the enjoyment out of it. It no longer serves their purpose. They realize, well, okay, this thing ain't really working for me no more, or somebody ruffled their feathers And so it's all about them. And so you just drop it, right? If you lack that quality, or if you ladies have a boyfriend, for those of you who are married, if your husband like that, it's a hard luck, that's your husband, right? But for you, those of you who's single, and let's say you are dating somebody, or you've dated somebody in the past who is like that, never sticking to their word. They tell you they're coming to pick you up to go here, they never come, or if they come 2 hours late, or it's always if your boyfriend or your fiance is displaying that kind of lack of commitment, it's something to pay attention to. Now, I'm not saying it means the person could never be a good husband, but it means that generally commitment is not something that it's built into that person's character. And ladies, let me tell you something, commitment, right? Commitment is needed in a marriage, right? Because you are not, let's specific you, right? Because you are not always going to feel to stay, right? I'm going to ask you ladies, and I don't mean that you're going to the extent of you leave or whatever. Some of you actually left already. But let me ask you all a question. How many of you are married and you have reached the point in your mind or actually physically where you felt like leaving, or you said to yourself, I done, or you tell your husband even, I done, or you actually left and you come back or whatever? How many of you actually been through that in your marriage and you realize that I can't just walk away, right? I left my husband 3 weeks ago, actually. No, I don't know your situation. Remember, I am not talking about people who are really in a relationship that they need to walk away, right? There right now. Wow. Let me see, anybody else? I think about once a woman gets it in her head, no coming back. Nah, that's not true. That's not true. No way. I'm actually going through that and confused. Okay, I hear you. So hopefully we'll be able to help. So I really need to differentiate, right, ladies? There's some of you who are in marriages that is very toxic. And I mean, we've had sessions about that. I've had like more than 2 sessions talking about toxic relationships. And when it's time to leave, if you're dating someone and even when you're married, right? That is correct. Women leave mentally before they leave physically. I have felt this many times. Who's saying that? Sarana, Keisha, went through that and dealing with some issues right now. Okay, right. So my point in asking that, I want out because of constant cheating. You don't have to go through that, Cindy. You don't have to be in a marriage where your husband is being unfaithful, right? You can leave, right? You can leave. Especially if you say constantly, right? And by cheating, I hope you mean cheating, right? Because some women are, and I'm not saying this is you, Cindy, please. But some women think their husband cheating when they just look at somebody. You're cheating, or they talk too long to somebody, you're cheating, or they have a constant suspicion. But if you know for a fact your husband is cheating, and some husbands, they don't even care, they're telling you, that's a marriage that may need to end, right? Because that person, we're talking about contracts, that person has broken the contract, right? There's no contract anymore after unfaithfulness, right? You could still love after unfaithfulness, but you can also it's your right to say, I'm done, right? Right. Okay, I got you. Cindy, maybe we could probably chat after, right? Right. So ladies, here why I asked that question. Marriage is a contract. You sign a piece of, listen, it's such a serious thing that the country that you live in gives you a certificate that is signed. Both of you have to sign. You have to have witnesses. It goes down to where's it go down to? The district revenue office. It goes down to get stamped, right? It's so serious that you have to post bonds before, and you have to legal affairs. Thank you, darling. Why wasn't that coming to me? Marriage becomes a legal matter. It's a serious thing. And it's not only a contract between you and the land, it's also a contract between you and your husband and God. And you make a commitment, you make these vows, and you say all these wonderful things on your wedding day before witnesses, before your husband, and before God. And so you cannot, because your husband is no longer showing you love, or because your husband don't do nothing around the house, or because your husband not making enough money, or because your husband not satisfying you sexually, or because your husband, all these reasons that sometimes people want to end marriages, or because your husband frustrating you, or all these, I'm not talking about the unfaithfulness and the abuse, right? Those are not reasons to break your commitment, the commitment that you made in the land, in Trinidad, before God, before your husband. Those are not reasons. So you have to have a strong sense of commitment, right? And if you were, some people have an advantage because they were brought up properly and their parents teach them teach them what is integrity, and they have a good moral character. And there's some people that I really admire. No matter what task you give them, they complete it. They will do it. They will commit to it. They will stick to it because they understand and they make a commitment. Some people just don't have that in them, and they approach marriage the same way, always ready to fly, always ready to ride, always ready to say I done, right? Because you don't understand commitment. And so, ladies, I'm telling you this. I'm not asking you. I'm not asking you. I'm married 20 years. I'm not asking you. I'm telling you, there will come a time in your marriage where your commitment will come into question because of how unloved you feel, because of how insensitive your husband is towards you, things like that. And you just feel like this is not going anywhere. We keep we can't see eye to eye, or you feel like the person is consistently hurting you, right? And there's no understanding. We spoke last week about resolving conflict, and there's always conflict and that kind of thing. That is going to bring your commitment into question. Like, should I stay in this thing, boy? Right? Marriage is for life. Like, I deserve better. Chanel, correct. I deserve better, right? Basically, the Bible says the two shall become one. And when you make statements like that, I deserve better. Now, again, oh gosh, I don't want to keep saying this, right? Because I don't want all to be listening to me and saying, well, what is woman saying, boy? I had to just take this abuse. I'm not saying that, right? This is the last time I'm saying that, clearing that up, right? I'm not saying that. I'm talking about the other things that people want to end commitments for. I am a pastor, and I'm also a wife of 20 years. I've counseled many married people. I remember counseling someone, sat in front of me and my husband, she and her husband, and the reason that they wanted to get divorced, but I think she's the one who more wanted the divorce, right? Was because he was not cooking, and that if she didn't come home, he wouldn't at least start cooking. He wasn't pulling his weight financially because she was making more money, right? Not that he wasn't working, but her salary was just much more than him. So most of it was on her. But the job that he was doing, she met him doing it, right? And he was in that job for years, right? So he wasn't boiling rice or cooking when on time, or he wasn't pulling his weight. He wasn't pulling his weight, right? That was the majority of what I heard. I don't know if I missed more, but that's the majority of what I heard was the reason for the divorce. And that is no reason for divorce. I have heard people sit in front of me and say, well, I don't feel loved anymore. I don't feel appreciated. I don't feel that anything I do goes noticed. I will clean the house, I would cook, I would do this, and I don't get a thank you. And and they want to leave because they're not getting thank yous, and they're not feeling appreciated for the things that they're doing for their effort. Those are not reasons to want to break your contract and give up on the commitment that you made to this person. And so that is why, ladies, I'm saying that love is not all you need, right? Eros will not do it in those times, right? You can remember, and many of you sometimes, I'm sure some of you women have said, Man, I wish I could go back to the way things used to be when we first met. How many of you said that concerning your relationship? Doesn't necessarily have to be a marriage, but you're dating somebody and you say, man, I wish it could go back to the days, boy, when we used to do this and when we, oh gosh, look at the me's come out and when we used to do that. And if it could only be like back in the good old days and right? So if you never get back to the good old days, ladies, right? Which was what you were riding on in those good old days was eros. That is what was carrying you through. That was what was causing the excitement. And even to get married, even the excitement and thing to get married, it was eros, which is a type of love, but not a love that could sustain a marriage. I mean, it's so ironic because it's the reason why most people get married, which tells me, which actually indicates to me why so many marriages end, because people get married thinking that that's enough, right? And it's not. And so you have to have a strong sense of commitment, right? Love is a commitment, and as your marriage, if you're married long enough, you will be tested in that area, right? Love demands commitment of you, right? It's actually, I mean, we have a choice in everything, but when you get married, marriage is not something that you could just, and people do it though. I really question why even get married if your thoughts well, if things will work and I would just leave here. Why bother to get married? Because if you go into a marriage thinking like that, ladies, more than likely you're going to leave. Because the first thing that really upsets you and make you feel unloved and hurt, you're already thinking that way, so you're gone, right? So don't go into a marriage thinking that there's a way out, right? Okay, listen. The Jesus used an analogy to describe marriage. And this is a serious thing, right? Ladies, pay attention, right? The analogy that he used, how many of you all know what analogy Jesus used to describe what marriage is supposed to be? How many of you all know? Talk to me if you know. Type it in the comments. Or they sleeping or what? Type in the comments. What analogy Jesus used something to describe marriage? He said it's like his love for us. Thank you, Katrina. His love for us. His love for us. He actually likened marriage to his love for us, the church. Do you all have any idea what Jesus did for us? What he did for you? If you don't know, let me tell you real quick, right? Us. It says the church, but the church is me and you, right? The church is me and you. When we had no interest in God, we were sinners. We were in a situation where every time we sin, we had to make a sacrifice. And if we break one law, we had to sacrifice. If we didn't, we go into hell. Going to hell was easy, and all of us was sinning bad, right? And what Jesus did, what God did, he gave his life for us, yes. What God did is said, you know what? These people, all of them go end up in hell if this is how they're going to have to atone for their sins. If they're going to have to kill an animal every time they sin and keep all the law to be righteous, they're doomed. So what God said is that, you know what? I'm going to do one sacrifice, one and for all. Because for your sins to be forgiven, there had to be innocent blood had to be shed, right? And that's why the killing of the animals used to happen, right? And you would have no animals left, Patrina. Correct. You'd be killing your pet home and all. Oh God, that's a horrible thought. What's your doggy name? Is Bruno? Is it Bruno? Can't remember, right? We wouldn't want to get there, but you distract me, Patrina. Stop it. Stop it, right? So what God says, yes, poor Bruno. What God said is that I'm going to do a once and for all sacrifice. I'm going to send the most innocent thing that I could find without spot, without blemish, perfect, righteous, holy. I'm going to send my son. And I'm going to let him die and let his blood shed once and for all so that they never have to make a sacrifice for their sin again. I'm going to forgive their sins, past, present, and future. That is what Jesus did. And all we have to do to receive now that atonement and what Jesus did is to believe that his blood was shed for our sins and to repent of our sins, right? And if you do sin, it is as simple now, right? Guys, if you do sin now, it is as simple as saying, once you sincere in your heart, God forgive me. Simple like that. You don't want to cry? No, I'm talking about if you're really sincere in your heart, right? Because forgiveness is not just saying words, God forgive me. Forgiveness means turning away, and because you're sorry for that thing that you did, you no longer want to do it. So you actually turn away and you change your ways in whatever area that is. You actually stop that thing, right? When you say, God forgive me, that's it. That's it. And God actually said, when you ask for forgiveness, you have no sacrifice to make. The sacrifice is made already. And he actually goes further and he says, I just take your sins and throw them far in the sea of forgetfulness. I don't even remember that, because you know why he could do that? That's deal with already. So if you still living in sin, it's because you want to. It's your choice. I said all that to say, ladies, that God likened marriage to that kind of love. Imagine how God loving you like that. When you didn't care about him, in fact, you was breaking all the laws, getting on bad, dirty, all kind of thing. And he said he loved you, he gonna die for you, right? And so that is agape. No two ways about it. That is unconditional love, because we did nothing to deserve it, actually. God just loved us, right? And that's why he did it. And marriage without agape, no. Your marriage could work. I have seen marriages work for long periods. People live together because the two people decided to commit to each other. That's all. I know people that are living together for many years, and you call it more living together or like an arrangement than a marriage. So I wouldn't call that a marriage. It's like they realize they have so much invested in each other. They have houses together, car, mortgage, children. They've seen about this one here, there, and they make a commitment to stay together. But eros is gone, and like to the point of no return, which is not true. You could always get that back, right? Philia is gone, right? Storage is gone, and agape gone, right? So two people can live together for many years because they have decided, they made a decision to commit to each other. But that's sad. Who wants to live like that? I was speaking to a woman some time ago, said she's been married 20 years. And for the past 5 years, that's what her marriage has become. And she said it started to feel like she was living in a prison. And just because she and her husband just didn't get along, they slept in different rooms. They would be cordial to each other. So if they see each other morning, whatever, she said she would still make breakfast for him now and again because they live in the same house and she making breakfast for everybody else. And so who wants to live like that? Oh gosh, I'm sorry. I'm sorry to hear that. King, that's no way to live. Just counting the number of years, yes, and the quality is not there, right? Or even worse, you actually make a verbal agreement. We go stay together because I don't want no go through no divorce. You have too many things invested together. That's no way to live. And you don't wait until your marriage gets to that point to try to fix it. It's going to be really difficult. You do it when it starts to break down, when you start to see the initial stages of the breakdown, right? And so agape, guys, right? We were talking about commitment, right? I was going to read something. Right. Commitment is a constant dying to self. It's a constant dying to self. And it actually, your commitment and your will to keep the contract that you made before God and the witnesses actually trumps the romance. It actually is more important than the romance, because the romance comes and goes and comes and goes. Sometimes goes for long periods. Then you have a little period of a little spark and you say, hey, we still have it, boy. And then it goes again. And in those moments where the spark is out, when it's the light out, cool, not happening, you need to understand, I'm committed to this person. This is my husband, right? And you still love the person. You still agape the person, but you're just not feeling that eros, right? And so it's a serious thing, guys, marriage. Jesus sees it as very serious because he likened it to what he did for the church. And so it's something that you're not to get into lightly. I always tell people, I rather you take the time than to rush because of Eros. Many people, and this happens with Christians a lot, right? They don't want to sin. You'll find that perhaps people who maybe may not be so concerned about keeping God's laws, they might be sleeping together. And so there's no rush to get married, right? It's not like a big deal. But for many Christians who are trying to keep themselves and not have sex outside of marriage, it could become a rush eventually, the marriage that is, because they don't want to sin. And so they feeling this passion for each other and this eros now. And they get into the marriage quick because they want to be able to satisfy each other, which nothing is wrong with, right? If you're having those feelings for somebody engaged or you're dating for a long while, don't suffer yourself. But if that's your main reason, you could be making a big mistake. This is to the Christian brothers and, well, they don't even have sisters here, right? Because a lot of times Christians get themselves into that trap. They quick, because they can't take it no more, right? It's a dangerous thing because Eros is not always going to be there, right? I feel to make all your type. My husband is always doing when he's preaching. Type in the comments, Eros will not always be there. You're not always going to feel it. Yeah, it's not always going to be there, right? Commitment is a constant dying to self, ladies, and it can be difficult at times. So the first thing, so my first point, Eros will not always be there. My first point, ladies, is commitment, right? I can't believe that's the time already. The next one, and I spoke about this last week a bit, is understanding. We spoke about how important understanding why your husband does what he does, right? We spoke about how important that is to keep a marriage as well and not making judgments. How many of you were on the call last week, right? Don't make judgments, right? And try to understand the person. I learned that very early in my marriage. That understanding my husband made it a lot easier for us to get along because there was an understanding, right? Very interesting. Here it is. This is in 1 Peter chapter 3. Now, this is talking to the men concerning women, but let me read it for you. Hear what it says, right? In the same way, you husbands must give honor to your wives. Treat your wife with understanding as you live together. The King James Version says, dwell with your wife according to knowledge. I actually prefer the word knowledge. And what that means is, ladies, if you all don't know it by now, women can be a little, we women can be a little complicated. Not only can we be a little complicated, right? We are a bit more emotional than men. And not only are we a bit more emotional than men, Christina, you'll ask the question after, right? We are different. We are different. Men and women, guys, your husband, male or men, are different to women. Think differently. Different things make us click. We process information differently. Everything about us is, almost everything about us is different. And here what God is telling husbands, right? Dwell with your wife according to knowledge. In other words, God is saying, learn to understand the woman, your woman, right? Well, a lot of women have things in common, but learn to understand your woman and dwell with her with the knowledge that you gain about her. But understand why she does what she does. This is the Bible I'm reading, right? 1 Peter chapter 3, right? Hear what it goes on to say. And ladies, y'all are not going to like this. And please note, I am not the one to get vexed with. Sorry, it's not me. You could take this up with God, right? So it says, treat your wife with understanding as you live together. She may be weaker than you, but she's your equal partner in God's gift of a new life. Treat her as you should, so your prayers will not be hindered. Now, this is a call for ladies only, but this is a nice scripture. Don't let a woman tell your husband this, make the man feel this is the only thing you learn on the whole call, right? It says, it's an interesting verse, right? You can read it, 1 Peter. You can read the whole of 1 Peter chapter 3, right? But it's saying, understand women, dwell with them with that understanding, because women, listen, there are things about a woman that a man really does have to learn and understand. when it comes to that time of the month, we know we could be different. We know we could be a little miserable. And women, because of our hormones, we kind of, we swing. We could be good. It's like sometimes it's just Dr. Heckle and Mr. Hyde or Hyde. And, or you know what I'm talking about, right? 1 minute you're normal, next minute you're bursting out crying, and the poor man like, you're okay, you don't know what to do, right? So men have to learn to understand women and dwell with them according to that knowledge. But it also says that she may be weaker than you. But in what God is saying though, that in spiritually she's not weaker, but in the flesh she may be, right? In the flesh. Thank you, Jekyll and Hyde. Thank you, darling. Thank you so much. In the flesh she may be weaker than you, not in the spirit. Treat her as you're supposed to, so that your prayers will not be hindered. So ladies, your husband, if he does not treat you right, if your husband treating you like a dog, he feels just he. Listen, woman, you have a husband, and the Bible says your husband is your head too. But let me tell you something, God is also your head, and God have your back. To the point where he actually said, if your husband feel he could treat you anyhow, he come and pray to me. This is what God basically saying. You treating your wife like a dog and coming and praying to me and making intercession. He's like, God will say, Breads, learn to treat your wife properly first and then come and check me now. Basically, this is what the scripture is saying in Trini language, right? Organize yourself down there with your wife and then come and talk to me, right? Organize your business first. Ladies, it's the same thing with you. Well, God never said he would hinder your prayers if you don't treat him right, but obviously you're going to treat your husband right, right? You have to understand your husband. There must be understanding in a marriage. And sometimes in the beginning of the marriage, there are things that you get wrong because you don't understand the man. And so you get it wrong and you make wrong judgments about him. And you make assumptions about why he does what he does, right? And but from the time you start to understand, listen, that was an eye understanding. My husband was an eye opener. It put me at peace about certain things. And so it's not, when he would do certain things, it wouldn't bother me anymore because I understand why, and I knew it wasn't an attack against me, or it wasn't, it wasn't him, doing this because of some way that he feel about me or he don't care about me. When you get to understand, it's very important. Understand and dwelling with each other according to knowledge and understanding, right? So I would say number 2 is understanding. And then the last thing, right? Last thing. Okay, here it is. Ladies, you could love your husband or your man to death. Love him to death. Love him, love him, love him, love him, love him. But if you don't understand why he does certain things that tick you off and piss you off and get you mad, it could actually ruin something that could have been great. Just because of your lack of understanding and knowledge about him and his likes and the things that he values and why he might react a certain way, your boyfriend, or let's say your husband, might react a certain way that really get hurtful to you, right? And when you get to the root of it, he is actually dealing with an issue that he developed from his relationship with his mother, right? Nothing to do with you, but something that you said or you did trigger that memory or that thing that he hasn't dealt with his mother. Let's say he had a bad relationship with his mother, and you might have innocently said something or did something that she would have done, and that she would have done perhaps to hurt him or whatever, but you didn't. You just used the wrong word at the wrong time and he tripped. I don't know if you've ever been in a situation like that, where you said something to somebody totally innocent. It doesn't have to be a husband, but husbands, it happens a lot on, family and stuff. You said something, you didn't mean no evil, you mean no bad, and the person tripped, and you're like, what's going on here? You confused, right? Basically, it's a person dealing with something internal that they have not really dealt with yet. They haven't dealt with the root of it. And there's certain things that you might do if you're close to them that triggers it, right? And so when you start understanding those things, instead of judging them and saying, you don't love me, and everything is about me, me, me. Love is the least selfish thing ever, right? And so you get hurt and it's like, oh, you told me, you don't love me, you care about me. Instead of trying to understand why the person did that. And if you really dig deep, it'll come out and he was a girl. My mother always used to say that. And it, yeah, the breaker always tripping, right? my mother always used to say that, or my mother always used to do that. And every time you do this thing, it reminds me of her, or something my father used to do, or previous. Listen, don't ask for previous relationships. When you get into a new relationship and you're carrying baggage from the old one, ladies, you start off your new relationship at a disadvantage. Deal with your past issues. If you are still dealing with hurts from your past relationship, if there are things that you have not healed from yet, if you still have a sense of mistrust for men because let's say your past boyfriend cheated on you, or let's say you make a broad statement about all men because two of your previous boyfriends did something, you can't go into your new relationship dealing with things that you have not recovered from the past. Make sure you are healed before you jump from one relationship to the next. The objective is not just to have a man, ladies. You're looking for a husband. And you looking to be whole. When you meet somebody that you say, okay, I want this person to make a good husband. You want the person to meet a whole, healed, healthy person. You don't want them to meet some broke up, raggedy, if they gotta see inside you. I don't mean how you look at, because I don't know how many of you all saw the Miss USA 2019. Beautiful woman, beautiful. Her hair, I was like, I had like a real horrible selfish thought. Like when I heard she killed herself, I was like, it's shallow. My thoughts were shallow. I had many thoughts, but it was one. I was like, all that hair just gone, Her hair was like big, poofy, curly, nice hair. Anyway, she's a beautiful girl, Miss America. She was the host of one of the entertainment shows or something like that. She was doing all kind of things, beautiful. Listen, from the outside, she looked like she had everything going for her, right? Everything going for her. If you go to her social media, it's still up on Instagram. I can't remember her name. Everything going for her, right? But let me tell you all something. Many times, guys, the most broken people who are inside make the most effort to fix the outside, because it kind of gives them a little reprieve, a kind of sense of, well, if I'm feeling so, let me try and fix up myself and maybe I'll feel better. And so they always put in emphasis on outside, fixing the hair, making sure the makeup done, and they're looking all put together. But many times that's just a facade, and what is really inside is a mess, is a mess, is a mess. And obviously that young lady, if you all don't know about the story, you could check it. She was dealing with depression silently. But if you look at her social media account, there's no hint of depression on the outside. And so that shows me how people can put up a show and hide their true feelings and try to deal with it. I don't know if she ever really got help, right? How did I get here, ladies? I was saying, make sure that when you go into a relationship, right, that person is getting somebody who is healed, mind, body, soul. I don't mean it you can't be sick, but you know what I mean? You're not going into a relationship with brokenness and still thinking about your past. And something I always tell people who've been through a breakup as well. Before you move on, I think you need to know why your relationship didn't work, especially if it was a long relationship. Because you don't want to go into a relationship and make the same mistakes because something made you think you was doing something right? And so you want to make sure that you deal with your past hurts, ladies, and you want to make sure that when you meet that person, the new person, they're meeting somebody who's healed and that they're not dealing with your old baggage as well. That's just gonna, and it's really unfair to the person as well because you want to start with a clean slate, right? You don't want to come with anything in your mind from your past and so on, right? Yeah, so ladies, you can love him to death, but if you don't understand him and you don't understand why he could need help. He could be doing certain things and he really is broken inside and he needs healing. He's been through some trauma. He didn't have a good upbringing, whatever it is, and you could perhaps help him. Instead of just thinking about how it's affecting you, think about why he's still being affected in this way and see how you could help your husband or see how you could help your boyfriend find out why. Try to understand instead of making judgments, right? So understanding, number two. Number three, and this one might be a little sensitive for you all, right? I want to finish quickly, right? Sometimes we say we don't feel loved, right? As women, I'm not feeling loved. Gosh, if I had a penny for every time I heard that statement, I wouldn't be rich, but I could fill a jar. I could fill a jar. That statement, I don't feel loved, or I don't feel the love again, or you know, whatever it is, right? Now, the things that we love in the natural, we love them because there's some value to it. To you, there's some kind of value, right? So you might have a favorite something, a favorite perfume, or a favorite car, or something, but you value, because you value this thing a lot, you love it. We can love items too. When I say love, you know, the kind of love I'm talking about, of course, I love this thing. It's, okay, I'm using the wrong word. Precious. We have things that are precious to us, and it's precious to us and dear to us because of the value it adds to your life. You all agree? It's things that really add value. It could be it could be a simple thing like a special vacuum cleaner you finally found. And when you start to use that vacuum cleaner, it surpassed every other vacuum cleaner you ever use in your life. And you end up falling in love, you know, I'm just using the term loosely, with this vacuum cleaner because of how it improved the quality of your life and how much value it added to your life. And so it becomes something that is precious to you, and you value it, and you make sure you take care of it because you realize this thing helping me out. When I use this vacuum, I don't have to sweep for 3 weeks. If I find a vacuum that I could use and it prevents me from having to sweep for 3 weeks after that, that's a valuable thing. That's a precious thing to me, right? So you all get where I'm going, right? So we know why and how we place value on items, right? I want to say to you ladies, right? Many of you all go into marriage and even relationships, and you want to find out, ladies, this is important. Everything I'm saying is important, but please listen to me. You want to find out what your man values, what he values. Now, I remember we had a discussion on a program that we have in our church called Real Talk, and we had a couple single people on. And one of the guys, we asked them what are the things that they really important to them in a relationship. And one of them, the first thing that he said was a woman who could cook, right? He said, listen, that is very important to me, a woman who could cook, right? And other people went on to say different things, right? So now I would say to if that gentleman now was to meet a woman who cannot cook, but let's say she's very attractive, right? Now, cooking is a thing, right? But he said he values it high. It was number one on his list, actually. It was actually number one, right? So if he was to meet someone now who cannot cook, have no interest in cooking, the person don't like to cook, they have no interest in cooking, and in fact, their thinking is, me and get married to be no cook, that means nobody cook. I ain't nobody cook, right? We go hire a maid or whatever, but he want he wife to cook, right? We gotta get somebody to cook, or we go order food or whatever, but I ain't cooking, right? You think that make any sense? Let's say you're dating, you're looking for somebody. I asking you all, right? Why would you look for somebody, the thing that you value the most so high on your list, right? Why would you go and choose someone who does not see your values as anything at all, as nothing, as I don't want to do that, I don't care about that, I don't want to do that, right? A recipe for disaster is a very good word to use, right? And so what I would say to you ladies, find out if you're dating, observe. I don't mean find out by asking her. You'll be able to find out in the relationship as things go along. What does this person value, boy? And let's say it is home cooked food. Let's say every time you cook food and you carry for him, he just end up loving you more. Like it is like the food like sex. Sorry to use that analogy, but we all know all men love sex, right? But when you cook food and it tastes good, he just be like, woman, let me tell you something. You see, you woman, I ain't letting you go for nothing. Because you see, this sweetheart, I not going to find no other woman to cook this food for me. And then the fact that you The fact that you're not only a cook, he like your cooking, right? You're cooking good. He realized that this woman adding value to my life because food really important to me, and this woman could damn cook, right? And food is important to men too. Sex and food, very important to them, right? And or let's say a man values. I had a have a friend who would always tell me that he values he read the things that he highly values in a woman. And one of them is a woman who would be able to organize the home and organize, like, because he not too good with money and spending and that kind of thing. So he said something that would be a high value to him is somebody who would take over that part, take over. Not that he not working, he making the money, but he not too good at paying the bills and organizing. So that's something high value and somebody who could do this and that and stuff. But to him, his girlfriend didn't offer those things. So I would always be like, well, I'd always be confused. I'm being honest. Like, well, if this is a high value thing for you, why are you with someone who's not, honestly? And a lot of times it comes down to the fleshly, the attraction. What you all do a lot of times is allows attraction and chemistry and eros to trump everything else, to trump even the practicality of life. As somebody said, you get yourself in a situation where it's a recipe for disaster, right? You value family, right? They're trapped. No, darling. Pauline, no. If I read for you what the Bible, if I go to read for you, actually I have it here. Pauline, if I read to you what God values in a woman, you would say he's stuck in 2000 BC. You would say we stuck following our God in 2000 BC. It is nothing like the woman of today. The woman of today has strayed so far from God's intention that we think that God's intention is the wrong one, right? If your husband values family, sorry, not your husband, your boyfriend values family, right? I'll tell you, I'll go to it. I have the scripture, right? I don't know if I could get it. This might actually have to continue or maybe not. Hold on now. Yeah, I'll probably try to get it. Gosh, it's 9:30. I can't go much further, right? So what I could probably do, I'll probably do a part 2, right? I'll probably do a part 2. No, Pauline, you're wrong. Your husband doesn't have to learn to cook. My husband, why my husband have to learn to cook? No, if it was a situation where I was away a lot and there was no other way for him to cook, for us to eat, sorry, but for him to cook, then he would have to step up. But to make a broad statement where like my husband have to cook, well, listen, Pauline, let me tell you something. Make sure the man that you end up dating can cook and like to cook. I know many men who love to cook, but I know many who have nothing to do with the kitchen and they're anxious to get a wife who will cook their meals for them. Nothing wrong with that, right? I see nothing wrong with that. It's something that you value and you can look for that in a partner, right? Of course, well, guys, I mean, that kind of goes without saying. It's a partnership, right? So I'm not talking about you serving him. Remember the scripture I read before, how the man has to treat you as something precious, and you are supposed to be the most precious thing to your husband and treat you that way. But how is you cooking for your husband, not him seeing you as precious? I don't understand. I confused. I like to see my husband happy when he eat my food. I like to see when he, like, this actually happened today. I kid you or not, right? I was passing by the dustbin just when he was going to put his plate in the sink, right? And it had a little bit of food left in the plate. And he go to ting it or scoop it out in the bin, and he actually did so. He actually bring it back up and eat the last. It's like he was telling himself, nah, I ain't getting rid of it, nah. And he stand up right there over the dustbin, and maybe it's some gross, I don't know. And he eat the last, and I was like, whoa, that's proof that, I mean, you're like before you don't even want to throw it away. You know, the little rice scraps, he said, nah, I learned that too. That makes me happy, right? But the thing with me, and if I don't feel to cook, my husband will never insist that I cook. We order food. I'm not opposed to eating food outside, neither is he. So it's not like it's a maid or where I have to cook every day. If I wake up and say I don't feel to cook, that's absolutely no problem. Absolutely no problem. We go out and get something. I go and buy something. I order something. That's fine, right? Anyway, so what I'm saying now, I knew that the ladies would have a problem with this, and I don't understand it, because we know how objects and things add value to us and how things become precious to us. Why not become a precious thing yourself by adding value to your husband and by knowing the things that he values, and just that don't if you love somebody, that's what you should want to do. And I am talking, there are no men on this call. So I'm talking to ladies. If there was a man on this call, I'd be telling the men the same thing, right? So I don't have to make it known that, well, it's a partnership and what they do to you, do to me. Of course, there's only women here, so it's women I'm talking to, right? The beautiful darling, looking forward to doing these things to my husband, right? And you know what I don't understand sometimes with the ladies, right? We would do everything for our children. We wipe their bottom. We wipe their bottom 3 times a day with nasty smelling tutu. We bathe them, we feed them, we put them to sleep, we wake up all hours of the morning, we lose sleep, we get bags under our eyes, we carry them for 9 months, we sacrifice for our children, right? But when it comes to your husband, why he want me to do that? Why I must do that? Right? And then some of you will go as far as to say, well, the child, the baby, helpless. I still do it for my child is 16. Anything she asks me to do, I just want to do it for her. Why? I love her. So, I mean, there are things that she can't do herself, but just because of the love, when people know you love you, they love you, they can manipulate you, especially children. And so when she comes and she have a particular tone, it's hard to say no, and the love is like, all right, I'll do it for you, although I know you could do it yourself. I'm happy to do it for my daughter, same way I have to do it for my husband, right? So, and of course, again, I don't have to go into what your husband should be doing for you or not. Of course, he valuing you to taking care of you. Your husband not taking care of you is something wrong, but that's supposed to be a given. He's supposed to take care of you, right? But ladies, you can create opportunity for love by adding value to a relationship, by finding out what your husband values, what your boyfriend values, and making yourself valuable to him, right? And I'm not saying that. Remember, we talked about agape before, right? I'm really going to have to continue because I have a lot more here. Certainly, I won't be able to finish, right? So I'm going to have to continue this next week. I am not saying, we talk about agape. I am not saying that if you don't do this for your husband, there's a big difference between a man saying, I want a woman to cook, right? And let's say you get married and the woman starts off cooking, but then after a while, something happened and she just don't like to cook again. And if he stopped loving you before that, because of that, then something is wrong. Then agape was never there. Because agape love doesn't deal with conditions. It's not I love you because you cook. And that's not what I'm saying. Because you don't want a man who just loving you because you're doing these things, but you want to go into a relationship and you want to add value. Don't you want to add value? Don't you want to? I mean, I don't know. I would like to know that somebody sees me. I know without a doubt that my husband sees me as valuable. Very valuable, right? And listen, vice versa. Vice versa. I see him as extremely valuable. And I know the things he values and he knows the things I value, right? And so, yes, it is a partnership. But I'm talking to you ladies. And if you want, to see yourself as, and I will get into it next week, right? And what God talks about that. You want your husband to actually see you as precious, right? Be valuable to him. He would be like, today. So many examples coming to me, like the Proverbs 31 woman just came to me, right? Where it says he's known by the city, at the city gate, at the front of the city, because of his wife. And your husband would even boast about you. Boy, my wife, she this, that, and my wife, you can't touch her, and that woman, she could do this and she could do that. I don't know about you, but I want to be valuable. But I also want to know that my husband is valuable to me. But I don't want you all to get mixed up. And I'm saying that this is a condition to love, right? But I'm saying that you should want to add value to your relationship, right? You don't want to be imagine, okay, your husband marry you, right? And all you don't want to work, You don't want to clean the house. You have a maid for that. You don't want to really, you don't like paint going out too much and paint bills. All you want to do is do your nails and do your hair, and you want to concentrate on your career, right? So basically you're married, but you want to see about yourself, right? You still care the children, but that's, kind of, I'm not saying that your husband shouldn't love you, obviously, but you as a woman, you should want to add value to your home and to your marriage, right? And I don't work, I don't have a 9 to 5 job, but I find ways ever so often to make money to help in the home, right? Because I see it as important to add in value in that way. I mean, the value I add monetarily is certainly not compared to my husband, but I still like to be able to make an effort and show myself valuable in that way, even though I'm valuable in so many others. But I don't want to boast or anything. But yeah, right. So, ladies, we will continue next week. It is 9:40. I did not intend to go so long. I apologize.